to discuss. So what would you like me to start with?
I think, Laura, people would be interested in how you went vegan or why you went vegan at such an early age. And I always find that fascinating, the personal story of how and what prompted you to go vegan. Maybe start at that and give us something about NARA, the National Animal Rights, and how that started and where you're going with it. And in the end, then maybe what you see the future, how we should maybe go about doing things, activism, and then hope for the future. So,
all right, yep, sounds good. So basically, for me, like, my parents always rescued animals, and I grew up basically on an animal sanctuary. So it was very easy for me to connect the dots because I was with animals all the time. So when I was about 12, it really sort of hit me. It connected that how could I be caring for so many animals, love so many animals, and then come in and eat my dinner, which consisted of murdered animals. So when I was about 12, I told my parents that I was going to be a vegetarian, and to my pleasant surprise, they decided that it was a great idea and they were going to go vegetarian as well. So we did it together, and then about a year later, my mom was actually reading a book and it discussed veganism. That wasn't what the book was about, but it briefly went into it. So she had a chat with me about it and we discussed it, and she was like, what do you think? And we decided then to go vegan together. And then it was about a year after that, then I kind of realized that going vegan wasn't enough, that one needed to be an active participant in change. And so then at that stage, I was about 14 and started joining all of the local animal rights groups around Ireland. And then I started getting in touch with activists all over Europe, particularly a lot of groups in the UK. And then that started my activist journey. So I would have got involved with Dublin groups initially. And by the time I was about 15 or 16, I started running anti-fur campaigns. And I don't know if many here will remember what Dublin was like back in the early 2000s. But every shop and boutique had some form of real fur. All the department stores had real fur. Cleary's, even Arnott's, everywhere had real fur. And myself and other campaigners started consistently targeting each shop one by one, having protests every week. And we were the first in Dublin at that time to hold weekly demonstrations. Usually at that time, animal rights events were quite sporadic. So we started what would now be known as pressure campaigns in Dublin, and one by one got shops and department stores to sign for free policies. So that's kind of what I started out with. And then at that point, I started traveling to the UK a lot because they were the ones with the big vegan festivals and vegan fairs, and I started connecting with activists over there. And at that point, it was the height of the SHAC campaign, which is Stop Huntington Animal Cruelty. It's a group that no longer exists, basically because of police and state oppression over there. It was a big anti-vivisection campaign. So they really instilled in me the need to make targets, stick with it, and have consistent targeted pressure campaigns until you achieve a goal. So a lot of what I do would be based on tactics and techniques I would have learned from them. Then at that point, then a lot of the groups that I was involved with and a lot of the campaigns I was involved with, it wasn't quite tactically or ethically merging with how I really felt things should be done or how groups should be run. So at that point in 2007, I set up NARA, the National Animal Rights Association, and our main campaign, as most people would know, would be the campaign to ban fur farming in Ireland, which was eventually successful. But we do other issues as well, like that can range from anything from protesting greyhound racing stadiums, doing vegan outreach, protesting Dublin Zoo, protesting the HPRA, like we try and do as much as possible. But at the moment, we are focusing on our campaign to ban hair coursing, because we are lucky enough to have a bill in government that passed first stage. It has yet to go to second stage, which means the TDs get to vote on it. But because we have a bill in government, like what we did with the fur farming campaign, that's what we're doing at the moment. So our agenda, following on from banning fur farming, is we want to get hair coursing on next, fox hunting, all forms of blood sports. Then we want to move on to kind of bigger issues and more difficult issues like animal testing, animal agriculture, and just keep going until we achieve what I envisage to be Ireland being a vegan utopian island. That's the ultimate goal. But that's where we are at the moment. And we're out twice a week, every single week. If anybody ever wants to get involved, on Saturdays at the moment, we are going from town to town, county to county, leafleting about the hair coursing campaign. We're outside the Department of Agriculture. It's a government building in town every single Tuesday. So if anyone ever wants to get involved, they're more than welcome. There'll always be something to do, always be somewhere available to go, to just get in touch with us. But ultimately, we do want to eventually campaign for a ban on animal agriculture in Ireland. Blood sports, you know, like fur farming, are the smaller issues that we want to get out of the way, but definitely it's in our sights that we want to ban pig farming, chicken farming, cow farming, dairy industry, absolutely everything. And we won't stop until we achieve that. But we're also a consistent anti-oppression group. So that means that we are involved in human rights campaigns as well. Now, whereas we wouldn't spearhead human rights campaigns, we join in and support groups that do. So, for example, a couple of years ago, we would have been actively involved in the campaign for marriage equality. And during the repeal, we had a weekly Vegans for Choice outreach session. And we just got leaflets from all the repeal groups, and we'd spend an hour or two on the streets campaigning for repeal, and trying to get activists within the vegan community on board with these important, huge changes in legislation for human rights in Ireland as well. We'd also be going to every Free Palestine march that happens. We also supported the campaign against water charges. On the 18th of February, this upcoming Saturday, we're going to be going to the march, the Ireland for Everyone, Refugees Welcome, Healthcare for All, Housing for All march as well, because it's important that we're consistent. So, whereas our main campaigns are absolutely animal rights, whenever we're available to support any human rights issue, we absolutely do, because it's important. You can't have one without the other. And anyone who does want to get involved with us, we would, make sure that they align with our values and our ethics. And what our stance is on all these issues is available on our website. We have our mission statement on our website. So basically, no hate, no intolerance in our organization. Everybody is welcome, and everyone has to have both of those concepts in mind when they join. So that's basically it in a nutshell. If there's any particular issues anyone would like me to go into further, like an explanation on what hair coursing is, or the current situation of even blood sports in Ireland, do feel free to ask as well. I just see some comments there.
I just read briefly this morning that one TD suggested that the coursing festival in Clonmel is equivalent to Cheltenham for horse races.
Yeah, that would be true. We were protesting. It was the Irish Council Against Blood Sports that organised the protest in Clonmel, and a bunch of us travelled down from Dublin. Now, activists travelled from all around Ireland to attend that protest, actually. But yes, it's one of their biggest events of the year, the coursing finals. And even with that, we notice that every year that it is getting less and less attended. You know, normally, like where we protest is outside the entrance, obviously, and the entrance is, I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, it's like a giant car park. And normally that car park would be full of coaches, like busloads and busloads of people. And although the car park, you know, was fairly full, it was, the vehicles were very much spread out. The buses were spread out, the cars were spread out. And normally there'd be a little bit of confrontation from the coursers as well. You know, they kind of stayed away mostly this time. And I do think it is naturally on the way out anyway. And certainly if it was up to the people in Ireland, the hare coursing and fox hunting and shooting would be long banned. It's only the TDs holding everyone back. But it is, and you know, and also just speaking of Cheltenham, horse racing is on our agenda to be banned too. We want it all gone. But we see like hare, like with fur farming, most people would be, you know, horrified by fur. Hare coursing, most people is horrified at the thought of blood sports still going on in Ireland. Same with fox hunting. These are things that should be easy to get rid of. And technically they could be. It's only the TDs and politicians that are holding people back, because for whatever reason, whether it's money, whether they're afraid of losing a handful of votes, it's issues that they're afraid to touch at the moment. And this is why we need not just animal rights activists lobbying government, we need everybody to, because I have emailed every TD in this country millions of times over every issue you can think of, but they want to hear from local constituents. And to take an example, say from our fur farming campaign, we did action alerts every week. We had stalls, we'd protest, we traveled the country, exactly the same as we're doing for our campaign against hare coursing. But it got to a point where I was contacted by Sinn Féin asking me to stop the emails because they were getting hundreds every day about fur farming, and they had already said that they were going to vote in support of a ban on fur farming. Now, obviously, I don't own everyone in Ireland or can tell them what they can do. So obviously, I couldn't stop them sending emails. But that was the volume they were getting every single day and every single week, just about fur farming. And I would imagine that it's similar to hare coursing. And we need to keep that up because it's constituents they care about, not me. And it would be the same, you know, about fox hunting and shooting as well. Not many people would think that's acceptable. But again, it's TDs that are the problem, not the people of Ireland. And I don't like the way TDs portray it as an urban versus rural issue. And that's just simply not true. It implies that if you're outside of Dublin, then you must be pro blood sports, pro greyhound racing, pro fox hunting, pro shooting. Not the case at all. My dad's family is all from Tipperary, and you know, I know what the feel of the stance on issues is down there. I know what the consensus is, and Tipperary says no to coursing. It may be where the finals are held, but that doesn't reflect you know, what the general population of Tipperary or anyone or anywhere would be like. It's an insult to rural Ireland to portray them as blood sports enthusiasts, and that's the truth. You know, that's not just animal rights propaganda, it's the truth. I just seen some comments there, I think from yourself, Paul. You're a member of the Vegans Against Abortion Facebook group and Vegan Pro-Life Facebook group, which is your choice, obviously. But that wouldn't be me, wouldn't be NARA. We believe in the right of bodily autonomy and everyone's right to choose. So obviously wouldn't be aligned with those views at all. Is there anything you'd like me to get into more, Dennis? Any particular issue?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, Laura, on just going back on what you said. in terms of the hair coursing bill, could you tell us a little bit about that? Is it a private members? And when is the second stage, please?
Yes, it was basically COVID sort of delayed everything quite significantly. So it's Paul Murphy initially put the bill forward for first stage, and it passed first stage. And then he joined People Before Profit. So he was independent, and then he joined People Before Profit. So they've taken that as part of their agenda, and it's gone into the lottery system at the moment. So what that means is that it could be called on for vote at any point. It could be a few months' time. It could be any week now, but it's been such a long time now. Like bills were put on hold during every lockdown and during big government reshuffles and things like that. So there's been significant delays. However, in all likelihood, because of the lottery system and because so many other bills have been picked out, it is very likely that it's going to come up soon enough. So that basically means now second stage is a vote, and it's not a vote for me and you, it's a vote for the TDs. So each party will have to adopt a stance on it, either for it or against it. And then their TDs with the whip system, which means every TD will have to vote what the party decides, will have to attend and vote. So at the moment, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael are pro hair coursing parties, but they haven't really indicated any sort of stance or opinion on this particular bill. I don't think they've really discussed it in their own parliamentary groups. Sinn Féin, they have a strange history in their stance on hair coursing, insofar as every couple of years they're either for it or against it. Some years they're absolutely for it, some years they're absolutely against it. At the moment, they are for it, and it was supposed to be on their agenda at their last Ardèche, and they decided to take it off the agenda and not vote in it for whatever reason. So Sinn Féin, I would see as very politically weak. They don't take firm stances on a lot of issues, and they wait to see what happens before they jump on board with things one way or the other. But as of yet, it looks like they're going to vote no. And as we've seen with one of Labour's more recent votes on I think it was the allocation of funding for the greyhound racing industry, they had a free vote. So that means each individual member of the party can decide with their conscience what way they want to go. So I would imagine they will probably do the same for this. But we need the big parties to get on board. And very disappointingly, but probably not shocking, the Green Party have said that they will vote with the government, even if that means they vote against a ban on hair coursing, even though it would be their policy to ban blood sports. So disappointing, but not surprising from them. But what this means is, if this bill could get picked out of the lottery system anytime between right now until up to the summer or after the summer recess, it means that we really do need to bombard TDs as local constituents, urging them to support the bill and urging them to discuss this within their parliamentary party. So it would mean, like what I did when the fur farming bill was coming up with, I contacted my local TDs and asked for a face-to-face meeting. Actually go to a constituency office, which you're entitled to do as a constituent, and bring this up as an important issue to you. And it does make them really think and reflect on it, because anyone who comes, especially to their clinic, they have to take notes of it. There has to be a proper record on it. Emails and phone calls, they can be deleted, they can be ignored, but we really need to be in all of our local TDs inboxes and phones and in clinics demanding that they take an ethical stance on this, because getting a bill in government is a big deal, and it doesn't happen very often. And if a bill fails, it can't be resubmitted for a number of years afterwards. So we have an opportunity here, a real opportunity to make legislative change. So we need to do all we can to make that happen.
Yeah, Paul has a question in there for you as well, Laura, on a little bit more information about the Green Party, please, in relation to them not voting or voting for or against the ban on hair coursing. I think that's what you're referring to, Paul, is it? Yeah, I'd say that's what he's looking for. Laura, if you want to go ahead on that, please.
Okay, so the Green Party, for reasons unknown, well, probably because they wanted ministerial positions, but the Green Party agreed to go into coalition with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, which are very much centre-right parties. So from climate change and human rights sort of issues, I don't know why they would have agreed to that anyway. But apart from that, basically, when they went into coalition, they made a number of concessions. So they would have had a number of demands that they wanted met for them to agree to go into government. And they didn't really fight very hard for the issue of blood sports. They like to say that it's thanks to them fur farming was banned because they had that on their agenda, but that was already in motion. The fur farms were already winding down. The Fine Gael government at the time already agreed to ban fur farming, and that original piece of legislation was brought forward by the Socialist Party, Ruth Coppinger, Mick Barry, and Paul Murphy, who was there at the time. So anyway, they didn't really fight very hard for the issue of blood sports, which means that for them, if they were to vote in favour of a ban on hair coursing and Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael voted against it, it would mean them voting against the government which they are part of. So usually when there are coalition governments, each party votes together because they form a majority, and once one of them decides something or wants a particular bill, the others are sort of guaranteed their support. If they were to vote against the government, it would probably result in suspensions for doing so, possibly further action. But this is why they're saying that they are going to vote with whatever way Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael vote, even if that means voting in favour of blood sports. So that's what happens when you go into government, coalition governments, especially with unethical parties such as Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. So that's why they are saying what they're saying. However, it's still important to bombard them with emails and phone calls, or if you're a local constituent, make an appointment to see them in a local clinic, because they need to know how much of an important issue this is and how much that the likes of me and you are upset with them for making this unethical decision. Because if they hadn't gone into coalition with them, they would be in opposition, and they would be a bigger percentage then of votes in favor for banning hair coursing. So like they've made a mess of their own political agenda on a multitude of issues, but regardless of what they're saying, it's still important to contact them every day if you can.
Just one thing, Paul, if you're there, you need to unmute yourself if you want to ask a question.
I think he's gone off, Carol. He's not going to be, he just left the question, but he's not paying attention. He does that. He goes off and listens to it on the headphones.
Oh, okay. And Laura, would you have a template letter addressing this issue?
Yes, absolutely. Every Monday we put out a political action alert. So we're basically each Monday go through all the parties. We have a sample letter, a list of their email addresses. So it's as simple as just copy, paste, send, and that's available on our Facebook page. We have it linked on our Instagram, our Twitter, and also our mailing list for anyone who signs up their email address, and you'll get it to your inbox as well. So we have it. Feel free to edit it. Letters don't have to be very long. It can be as simple as, I'm a local constituent or I'm a concerned citizen, and I want you to vote in support of Paul Murphy's bill to ban hair coursing in Ireland. It can be literally as simple as that, but what matters is the volume that they're getting about this particular issue. So anything and everything will absolutely help.
We'll do that.
And for anyone who would be interested in leafleting in their own area, and that could be either handing out leaflets on the street. It can be going into shops and asking them to put up leaflets or have a stack for customers. It can be going into housing estates and putting leaflets through letterboxes. We provide activists all over the country with leaflets to be able to campaign in their own area. So if anyone wants anything, just give us a shout. Our email address is info@naracampaigns.org, and just, you know, ask for a bundle of leaflets and we'll have a bundle shipped out to you that week.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. No, just I had my Bluetooth speaker on when I was listening to the conversation, and when I went to speak, I forgot to turn the Bluetooth off, and then you can't hear me, you know. So yeah, so I heard the answer. So thanks for your answer, Laura.
No problem. But yes, that's our main issue at the moment. And, you know, as I was saying earlier, you know, regardless of what happens with the hair coursing campaign, if it does fail on a vote, we're going to continue with it and, you know, trying to get an all-round ban on blood sports. Because for us anyway, there's no one route to successful campaigning. It has to be everything. So that's the leaflet drops, it's the info stalls, it's protests, it's writing letters, it's, you know, trying to make legislative change. There's no one angle that makes a success. And like what we saw with the fur farming ban, it took all angles to make it happen. There's no one correct way of doing things. But it definitely, there needs to be diverse action to make it a reality.
Okay. I was going to ask you about climate. Are you going to get involved in climate action or anything like that, Laura?
Well, we'd go to a lot of the bigger marches in town, and obviously as vegans, you know, we try and be as environmentally aware and conscious as possible. And that's from, you know, trying to buy local, buy organic, buy plastic free, not supporting fast fashion. You know, I think everyday choices we make, everything has an ethical consequence. So I think as vegans in general, we're all very aware of what our money could be put towards. So absolutely. And like with veganism, like with any form of activism, I think you learn more and do better every single day, every single week, every single month, every single year. And one of the great examples that I find of learning more to be more environmentally friendly and conscious is from the vegans. They're influencers, they're bloggers on Instagram, and they show you on a day-to-day basis how you can make these kinder decisions, and whether that's growing your own vegetables, it's where to shop that's, you know, refill containers and, you know, not single-use plastic. And it just makes it a little bit easier and more accessible to the average person when you have these ideas or these places in your head that you know where you can go to make these kinder decisions. So definitely, I think it's important that you're not only involved in, you know, human rights issues as vegans and animal rights campaigners, but also the fight for against climate change and to be more environmentally aware. I mean, personally, I don't buy any fast fashion, and I haven't done in years. I watched a documentary called The True Cost a couple of years ago, and from that point, I have never bought any big brands. And when I do have to replace any item of clothing, it's usually a big rigmarole of trying to find somewhere ethical. And it usually means that whether it's a new pair of jeans, usually it means they're very expensive, but at least that means I know that the item is organic, fair trade, and whoever made it got a fair, decent wage for it. So a little bit more effort, but much more ethical decisions.
Yeah, the vegans are very good. I follow them on Instagram. In terms of tactics and techniques, is there any one particular thing that you think that works best? I know you said previously you need the whole cocktail of everything, but is there any one thing that's quite effective, would you say?
Well, I guess it depends on the angle. It also depends on the target. Like, for example, if you're protesting a shop that sells real fur, bombarding them with emails and phone calls will definitely be helpful, but it's being outside their shop that's the most effective, because you're literally affecting potential customers coming in and out. So for things like that, I'd say definitely protests are a bit more effective. The same with, say, greyhound racing tracks, horse racing venues. A visual protest outside is definitely much more effective than emailing or calling the venue. But I mean, that is helpful as well. So grassroots on the street activism would always be my preference, but I would always back that up with that phone call, with that email, you know, or with that social media campaign. I find that social media is very helpful in terms of it can reach a lot of people, but I worry that it sometimes doesn't result in a lot of action. So whereas someone might share something on their Facebook page or Instagram page, which is helpful because their local community or their family and friends will see it, what we often need is, you know, feet on the streets to be out there for effecting change. And it doesn't have to be, you know, going to a protest. It can be doing a leaflet drop. It can be holding an information stall. It can be doing whatever anyone feels comfortable doing. I personally just prefer being out on the streets with a poster and leaflets and kind of engaging with people, or if we've bigger numbers at events, having a megaphone and just being a bit of a nuisance at a government building or office. But that's not for everyone either. So I would always advise people to go with their strengths and go with what's in their comfort zone, because if you're making yourself do something that you're not really that comfortable with, it's going to put you off coming back and doing it again. So that's another reason why anyone who would attend any of our protests, I always ask, well, would you like a poster? Would you like a leaflet? Or would you just like to watch for a while, or, you know, whatever you're comfortable with? And most of the time people might start off with holding a poster, then they might take some leaflets, then they might want to talk to people, then they might be interested in trying out a megaphone. So it's usually kind of progressive steps up. But, you know, if it wasn't for the hundreds of emails the politicians were receiving every day over the fur farm campaign, I don't think it would have been as effective either. So it's a combination, but I would love to see more people on the streets, because right now I think there's pockets of activists all over the country, and it's usually only a handful of us out week in, week out. I know a lot of solo activists around the country who are just literally just doing their own thing every week, and that could be whether it's leafleting, whether it's holding a poster somewhere. I feel we're all very spread out, which is great because we're hitting a lot of places and doing a lot of different things. But I definitely think there should be more sort of physical support and more numbers at events, even for our own safety as well.
Mm-hmm. In terms of, say, a demonstration on the street or outside a building or outside government buildings, what would you say is the optimum time or duration of that demonstration?
I usually stick with around an hour and a half to 2 hours, because any longer than that, then people are either going to get too tired, or you're going to have a situation where people might come for the last half hour or the last hour. You want the maximum amount of people there for the whole time. And usually I find between 12-ish to 2-ish kind of mark is the best time. So, and that's for government buildings and for, say, if you're outside a shop selling fur, because it's the most foot traffic. You're getting into lunch hour, people are coming and going, they're busy, it's more active. Any later than that, people are just in a rush to get home. Any earlier than that, people are rushing to get to work or college. It seems to be a good time frame to do it, and it seems to be for us that are outside government buildings, it seems to be where the most influx of TDs come and go as well. So when we're outside government buildings, if I recognize a TD, I'll stop them for a minute to try and push my agenda, you know, whatever I'm doing. But it's usually around that time. Earlier or later, they're rushing, too busy.
Okay, I think Paul has another question for you there.
Sorry, let's see. Any thoughts on splits within the vegan movement that has come to my attention recently? Splits, well, it would depend kind of on what the split occurred for. So usually when I see splits, or if I'm a part of a split, it's usually for some ethical reason, or it's usually not just a personality clash, or a slight difference of opinions of tactics. It's usually something quite major. So it could be, for example, a lot of well, not a lot of, but there's be some people that would be animals first or animals only, and might have a completely awful view, whether it's on women's issues or trans issues, LGBT rights, that kind of thing. So like Anonymous for the Voiceless, for example, were very popular for a long time, but the people running that turned out to be quite hateful and intolerant of human issues. And that's why, say, I never got involved with Anonymous for the Voiceless, even though there's a lot of great activists who are involved. The tactics are a good idea, showing footage and handing out leaflets, it's a good idea. But the leaders, so to speak, are very hateful. And I know that caused rifts and splits for a lot of groups around the world, not just myself not having anything to do with them. A lot of groups distance themselves. Another thing would be, say, money. Some of these big, vegan influencer types around the world that would be getting hundreds of thousands on their Patreon accounts and then disappearing off to Bali, that causes issues as well. So it would kind of depend on what the issue is. I wouldn't know many rifts that would be just based on personality clashes. It's usually something quite major, because even if some group is doing a tactic that maybe you don't particularly agree with or wouldn't particularly do yourself, it wouldn't really be a huge issue to create a huge division over, So I'm not sure, Paul, if you have a particular example you'd like me to get into, but I'm just assuming you're probably mean the bigger ones with Anonymous for the Voiceless.
So he's gone on the headphones again.
Right. Grand.
Laura, so just something else.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can kind of hear you now.
Oh yeah. No, it's just I have to turn off the Bluetooth speaker, and I keep forgetting. No, it's just I've noticed there's been splits among different groups, different and different people who were friendly in the past and now aren't. I don't want to go into examples, but we're kind of the vegan movement seems to kind of a bit split, and as a result, not as strong as it could be, And I've seen this written by different people, on Facebook and whatever.
Well, without kind of knowing specifics, it's hard to comment on a particular scenario. I might have, thoughts of it there. You could give me a particular sort of example, but in terms of, like as I was saying, the bigger groups, it's usually over something like that, someone at the top being intolerant, or some huge ethical conflict between groups, and that's usually what it is. And for me, I don't see that as being a bad thing. We shouldn't all unite on the basis that we're all vegan and all supportive of animal rights, because some people can be very hateful and can be very intolerant, and I definitely wouldn't want to associate myself with any group or individual like that. So whereas, yes, it is definitely a shame when there are splits and there are divisions, and a united front would be great. I think we have to look at the reasons behind the splits, and usually when you look into it, it does usually make sense.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Thank you.
Yeah, so you kind of touched on my next question there, Laura. Thinking about veganism and animal rights, would you see that one complements the other, and that they certainly are supportive of each other?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't have one without the other. I mean, my viewpoint on animal rights and human rights is that there is none one above the other. I don't see animals as more important than humans. I don't see humans as more important than animals. I see them all the same. But I do think it's important to be good allies and show solidarity to other groups and other causes, and not for your own kind of street cred. It's like, say, for example, any of the events that we would go to and support, we're not there like with a NARA banner. we're there to support the event because it's the right thing to do. And a lot of the groups there would recognize us and know us as being animal rights activists and vegans and things like that. But we're not there to try and steal any limelight. We're there to support it because we agree with it. And I found that personally over the years, from being involved with human rights campaigns and different groups, that a lot of people I would have met who, when they maybe initially met me, they were not vegan, not aware of animal rights, wasn't really even in their agenda, are now becoming vegetarian, vegan, coming along to support events. But it came from a place of sort of mutual understanding, not me arriving at their events with vegan literature and throwing it at them. It came from being comrades, and supporting common goals and learning from each other. And I know from attending these events and actions and talks and discussions with other groups that I learn more all the time, and I learn how to be a better ally and to be more respectful and more aware, and make kinder choices, and phrase things a little bit better and be more inclusive. So it's mutually beneficial, and I think it can only be a good thing. So recognizing that animal rights and human rights go hand in hand is essential to advancing equality for everyone. It's very important that we help each other out.
Yeah, and I think that's, you've touched on my next question as well. You seem to be preempting all my questions. The next question was that outreach from activists to activists, that if somebody joins the group and okay, they're not particularly vegan, or maybe they're looking at it, that we should be supportive to those people and informative, and certainly not push them away or ridicule them. I mean, I think everybody is trying it in their own best way. So could you talk to that for a little while, Lauren?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, like, not so much anymore. Anyone who usually joins our events now are vegan, but back, say, maybe a couple of years ago, people might have joined and they might just be, sort of animal welfare activists, or, self-identified animal lovers, and just want to come and support a particular cause or agenda. But everyone is always made aware that we are a vegan group, and that's our bottom line there. We're vegan, we're consistent. But we're there to help people on their journeys. So a couple of activists that I would know now years would have started, not even as vegetarians, joining a few anti-fur protests. And then through information that we shared, or I shared with them over time, then in their own time, then they realized, wow, I could go vegetarian, I could go vegan. It's not that hard anymore, and it makes sense. So I definitely think that it's important to give people a chance. And we weren't all vegan from birth. We weren't all enlightened from the beginning on this issue, or made aware. I mean, I know that when I went vegetarian, I thought that was the pinnacle of my ethics, and I was the best I could possibly be. And then came veganism, and then came everything else. So I think it's important to be kind and to give people the opportunities to grow and learn in a non-shameful way, but also make them aware that, if they are going to join an animal rights group, you do have to be consistent in your morals at the same time. But things can be discussed and approached in a nice way. Like, for example, I remember when I was about 14 or 15, I was at an anti-vivisection protest with a bunch of activists who'd come over from the UK. And we'd all stopped off to get, like, bottles of water or whatever to go on to the next target. It was like a full day of protests. And I got a bottle of Coca-Cola. And one of them just brought me to the side, not in front of anybody else, and just said, oh, just so you know, Coca-Cola, 1, tests on animals, and 2, is a very unethical company for humans and the planet and all this as well. As a 14, 15-year-old, it hadn't even crossed my mind. My mindset at that point was, oh, ingredients are vegan, I love Coca-Cola, must be fine. And the person who brought it to my attention wasn't mean about it, wasn't shameful about it, didn't even want to try and make me get rid of the Coca-Cola, just wanted me to be aware of the consequences of my decision. And from that moment onwards, I never drank another drop of Coca-Cola. but it's not because someone shouted at me or made me feel bad. It was just someone making me aware, you know.
Yeah, awareness is the key, isn't it? To raise awareness through outreach and education. How effective would you say you find your leaflet drops? Or you know, where you hand them out? I think you go around the country, don't you?
Yeah, we go around the country, and it's very hard to gauge because, you know, we don't get everyone that we hand a leaflet to on the street or deliver to their letterbox. They don't email us back to let us know kind of their thoughts on the issue. But what I will say from using that same template for the fur farm ban is that it creates awareness and it creates knowledge. So on my last count, we've delivered and distributed about 120,000 leaflets around the country. And for Ireland's small enough population, that's, you know, a significant enough sort of a starting percentage. So we're kind of going with the view that if people are made aware, then they're more likely to talk about it, think about it. And then even if 1 in 50 writes a letter to a TD or makes a phone call or says it to a local councillor, that it's all going to be helpful. And it's that ripple in the pond effect, you know, it has to start somewhere. And awareness does seem to be key, because I'm still finding when we're on the streets doing outreach in towns on a one-to-one sort of level with people going about their day, people still find it hard to believe that that hair coursing is still legal and that it still happens. And that's part of the problem. I think it would have been banned a long time ago, and there'd be more active vocal opposition to it if people knew about it. So part of our work at the moment is creating that awareness and trying to instill that, you know, level of urgency with the issue. But it's hard to create that urgency if people aren't aware. And people are not aware because, like with fur farming, hair coursing, it's a minority interest. It's kept very hidden. You know, even I don't know where all the coursing clubs actually are, where their trials take place. There's a few main obvious ones, like the one in Clonmel. There's one in Edenderry as well, that are very obviously set up. But most of them, it's a field at the back of some farm, and that's the extent of it. So if it was in people's faces and they knew about it a bit more, I believe that there'd be more action. So awareness, like with everything, is key to affecting change. But you don't automatically see that in the immediate. I would love to have the satisfaction of knowing that everywhere we go, the couple of thousand houses we do, that they're all looking at it and doing something. But I just have to hope that maybe even 1 in 50 do.
Let's see, anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I put a question there in the chat.
Oh.
What about food shopping for elderly non-vegan parents? Well, that's kind of not really my place to tell people what they should and shouldn't be doing in that regard. I'm very lucky that both my parents are vegan. But if they weren't, and if I was doing the shopping, it would be vegan versions of everything. But I'm lucky to not be in that position. But it's like with medication, you can't tell people what they can and can't do. You know, it's up to everybody.
Yeah. Hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. You said, like, you know, if say your parents were elderly and they wanted shopping and they were non-vegan, that you would try and get vegan alternatives.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like if they were insistent on you getting the normal stuff, I mean, I don't know if that's practical what you're saying there. It's a theoretical view, you know.
Well, it would be practical for me. I just wouldn't do it. It's like if someone asked me to shoot a pheasant because they were into it, I wouldn't do it. I don't view it as any different personally, whether it's a murdered corpse in a package or going out shooting something myself. I don't see it as any different. And I would think that if they're my parents, they wouldn't make me do something that I find so abhorrently unethical. Now, I am very lucky that both my parents are vegan, but even if they weren't, me as their daughter, they wouldn't make me do something that I'd find upsetting anyway. And I would hope that would be the case for most parents.
Yeah, but it's I'm not sure if that's
yeah, if that's the real world, but yeah, okay.
Okay, Laura, I think we're coming up on time here. Is there anything else you'd like to add, and maybe, you know, give your hope for the future?
Well, I think basically what I would say is that, you know, if anyone is in a position to get active and do something, definitely do it. And that can be any form of activism you want to do and that you're comfortable with. But there definitely needs to be more urgency and more action in Ireland on every possible issue. And it doesn't have to be what I'm doing or what any other group is doing. You know, do whatever you feel is the most effective and productive use of your time, but stick to it and do it. And even if you don't see immediate results, you will get results. Even just spreading awareness is a result. So that would be my ultimate message. For anyone who does want to get involved with NARA, we're out twice a week, every week. Have a look at our website, have a look at all of the issues that we'd like to work on. And I guess for our hopes for the future, would definitely be a vegan utopian agenda for Ireland. And I would definitely, in the next couple of years, once I just get blood sports out of the way, I would definitely like to be getting legislation introduced on banning chicken farms, pig farms, etc., and really start working on creating a plant-based agricultural system in Ireland, and not just because of climate change or the economy, but because it's the right ethical thing to do. A lot of the push for plant-based agriculture, I think tactically some groups use, you know, climate change and the fact that it would be more beneficial for the country to switch as a primary objective. I'd use those as an added bonus, but I think we have to put animal rights at the forefront, especially for something as big as that. So that's my wish for the future.
Okay, that's brilliant. I concur with all that. So how would people get in contact with you, and where can they find you in terms of social media, website? We will, of course, put everything up in writing form with the recorded webinar, so people can get in touch after they listen to this talk, those who want to, and they'll have the details down there in writing. But could you tell us how people would get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can contact us via either our website, it's naracampaigns.org, or our email address, info@naracampaigns.org. And we're also on Facebook, NARA Campaigns Ireland, Instagram, NARA Campaigns, and Twitter, NARA Campaigns as well. So we can be reached at any of those. My name is Laura. If anyone wants to contact me in particular, just put FAO Laura, and then they'll make sure that it goes to me. But any questions, or if anyone wants any leaflet packs or wants advice on starting campaigning in their own area, feel free to give us a shout. There's no such thing as a silly question. So get in touch if you want to.